Hey, good morning. It's Jim Dodson, the Florida bike lawyer helping fellow cyclists. I want to talk to you this morning about e-bikes, and really they're changing the cycling world. So if you're curious about e-bikes, you've kind of wondered what role they might have and whether you might have a role in your own cycling life, let's talk about some of those things here today. So the first thing is, what is an e-bike? Once they become motorized, are they a bicycle? Secondly, I want to talk about who's riding them and why. And then we'll talk about a little war story about a claim we had and an adjuster's confusion about what an e-bike actually was. You know, there's been a struggle in the industry between those people who make pedal-assisted e-bikes and those who make throttle-assisted e-bikes. What is developing is the more pedal-assisted with throttle control that'll assist somebody when they want to get extra power. So there's been a lot of confusion. The 50 states have 50 different criteria about what an e-bike is or what a bicycle is when they're electrified. Florida has a very simple statute right now. We sort of consider a pedal-assisted bicycle that goes up to 20 miles per hour is considered an electric bike in Florida. But there has been a proposal to create a more uniform statute. An outfit called People for Bikes has proposed an amendment to our Florida statute, very similar to a law that California passed in 2017, and I'll talk to you a minute about what that means. One of the overall kind of characteristics of most e-bikes today is the size of the motor. And on most e-bikes, you have a motor that's limited to 750 watts, and that's because there's some federal legislation about the maximum power of an e-bike. But people are actually making bootleg motors that are much bigger than that, and they're coming onto the market and appearing in our communities as well. So in Florida, we're considering an e-bike one that has a 750 watt motor. And there's a proposal that we really break e-bikes down into three categories. The first would be a pedal-assisted e-bike that goes only 20 miles an hour. In other words, the maximum speed under pedal assist would be 20 miles an hour. A category 2 would be an e-bike that is throttle only, but has a maximum speed of 20 miles an hour. And then there is a category 3, which is a pedal-assisted bicycle with a throttle, but a top speed of 28 miles per hour. Now, the importance of all that is that each of these proposed categories, 1, 2, and 3, would still be considered bicycles. So remember that a bicycle is, in Florida, there's no registration. You don't have to have a tag for it. You don't have to have insurance for it. You don't have to have a driver's license for it. So under the proposed law, if you get out of those parameters, you have a pedal-assisted bike that goes with pedal assist more than 28 miles an hour, it's not going to be a bicycle any longer. It's going to be some other category of a vehicle. If you have a throttle-assisted e-bike that goes more than 20 miles per hour, throttle assist only, it's no longer going to be considered a bicycle. So these are really important considerations for you and I who want to ride them, but also for the people who make them and the people who sell them. They need some uniformity about what is considered a bicycle in Florida. This California statute has followed this same model, and it's kind of fallen into a very popular model, the class 1, 2, and 3. I'm on the board of the FBA, Florida Bicycle Association, and we're actually considering proposing a legislative change to our statute in the coming legislature, and we're looking at the People for Bikes model and whether that's going to be the model that we're going to recommend to the legislature for e-bikes in Florida. So the thing about e-bikes under the proposed statute, they wouldn't be used on sidewalks, but they would be used on most trails up to 20 miles an hour. A category 3 e-bike would only be used, it's one that's pedal assisted up to 28, that'll be restricted to riding on roads only. So these are important criteria. You know, one of the things that we're finding is that these bikes are showing up in our club rides. And kind of let's talk about who's riding them and where. E-bikes are not like a regular road bike in the sense that they are much heavier. They typically weigh between 45 and 70 pounds. That's because of the battery and the motor. So you're not going to be wanting to ride this as a sport bike. You're going to be wanting to ride it with throttle assistance. Got a range of typically around 50 miles in most cases, and you can get cheap ones for as little as $1,200 or $1,500, but the main manufacturers are going to be in that range of $2,500 to $4,500 and up. They can get much, much more expensive. What we found is that, so who's riding these things? They have a lot of useful purposes. I think one of the first things is someone who has been an active rider. They have gotten older, or they've gotten an injury or a health condition that's limiting their ability to ride at the speed or the distance that they've been accustomed to riding. They want to make sure that when they leave on a club ride, they can get back, or that they can keep up and they're not going to get dropped after 15 or 20 miles. That is becoming a very popular type of person who's going to buy these e-bikes and transition into them. There's an interesting story in the Fort Myers News Press about Larry Hickey, who is the president of the Calusa Riders Bicycle Club down there. Larry had some health issue. He was in the 18 to 20 mile an hour group, I think, or the 16 to 18. And he just felt like he could no longer keep up with his friends. And he transitioned into an e-bike, and he said it's the greatest thing he's ever purchased. Changed his life, allowed him to extend his riding career and stay with his friends. He's sort of a classic example of the kind of person who's gravitating to e-bikes these days. But they're useful for people who want to simply commute. When you go into the big cities, you'll see families using e-bikes. Some of these larger bikes that hold 2 and 3 children, they'll be electrified, and they're using it for pure transportation around town. They have a real advantage if you're trying to use it for commuting. You're not going to arrive at work all sweaty like you've been to the gym. You can park them anywhere. You don't need a driver's license or tag, and none of the expense of having a car. So these are the reasons that people are kind of gravitating into the e-bike world. So let me tell you just one kind of war story. We had a case recently about a client was on an e-bike, and they were in a crash with a car. The e-bike got destroyed. The important issue was that there was a dispute as to whether the person was riding the e-bike on the sidewalk or whether they were riding on the shoulder of the road. And the adjuster came out with the misunderstanding that an e-bike really wasn't a bicycle, that it was a motorcycle, and therefore it would have been excluded, and they shouldn't have been riding where they were riding. So it would change the liability by putting it on the cyclist, not on the car, if he was in fact considered to be a motorcycle and not able to ride where he was riding. So we were able to convince him and show him the statute and how it applied, that he actually was on a bicycle under the law, and therefore the liability was with the driver, and we were successfully able to get the case settled. So if you have questions about e-bikes, if you're curious about them, you want to talk about them, email me your questions. I'll be happy to address them. I want to make an offer for you this morning to go to our website and get our Florida Bicycle Accident Handbook. This is really a great resource if you know someone who's been in a bike crash, just want to understand what to do in the event you were ever in a bike crash. These are, of course, free of charge. You can download it, get the e-version, or we'll happy to mail it to you. Just go to jimdodsonlaw.com and fill out the form, and we'll get it in the mail to you right away. So if there's no other questions, it's been great talking. I hope you enjoy the conversation about e-bikes, and look forward to seeing you out there from the Florida Bike Guy. Have a great day.